Hi everyone, this is our Caro-Kann course. This will be chapter 4, the exchange variation.
Yes, this is a fun variation to play. This has a reputation for being pretty dry and lots of draws, but we do our best to come up with dynamic plans that gives winning chances for both sides, mostly our side.
That's right.
So let's just go through what the exchange. So as the name suggests, white just takes the D pawn and we capture back. And at this point, we are in the exchange Caro-Kann.
Yeah, and if white plays c4 here, that will take us to the Panov attack chapter, which will be chapter 3. And there's a lot of different transpositions in both the exchange Caro and the Panov attack. One thing that we do in this repertoire is we'll follow the main lines first, and then we'll go down the sidelines, but we won't go too deep into the transpositions. We'll just tend to mention that there is a transposition there, or we hope that you'll be aware that it's a transposition. So the main move here is for bishop to d3, and now we're continuing with the recommendations in the other chapters of this course. We want to play for the initiative, so we're going knight c6 here, immediately attacking the pawn on d4.
Yep. And again, playing for the initiative, and now white needs to decide which way that they want to defend. So we cover both c3 here and knight f3. So we'll start with c3. This is also most popular by a big margin. I see 3,000 games with c3 and about 30 with knight f3. I have the master's database on. And we're going to continue developing with queen c7. So the key behind this move, yep, we're going to prevent the bishop from popping out, and we're also eyeing up this e5 pawn break as well. So again, in this position, white has quite a few options. Should we start with knight e2?
Yeah, I think so. Let's do knight e2. So the nice thing with queen c7 is not only can the white bishop not easily go to f4, but if that bishop goes to e3, for example, it's trapped in by two pawns. And if it goes to g5, it's sort of floating out there in space, not attacking anything. So that's why we tend to see this knight e2 idea supporting bishop f4. And that's when our e5 as a counter comes into play. So we don't always play e5, but if white's coming after us with bishop to f4 and forcing that move, then we will tend to play e5 to open up the position. So the recommended move here is bishop to g4, and here there's a couple moves. We're going to go over 7 f3, and we'll also go over 7 castle, which is a move that I just recently faced and got a bad position against. So f3 is the most common club move. There are some weaknesses though, because it opens up these dark squares around the white king, and castle is actually the most popular move at the grandmaster level.
Yep. So let's start with f3. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so as we note here in the notes on the side, this is the most popular move at the club level, which is where most of us are. Not Matt though.
No, I'm still in that category for sure.
Okay. So here we have to move our bishop, so we're going to retreat it all the way back to d7. What's the reasoning for keeping it on this diagonal versus dropping it back to h5?
So on h5, the bishop is actually a little bit out of play. When we see this pawn come to f3, we're already now thinking e5, let's trade the dark pawns in the center and attack the white king. So from d7, this bishop is pointing at the white king side and it's just a bit more flexible. Whereas on h5, the bishop is out of play and it could also maybe get kicked by this knight, like knight f4, knight g3 ideas.
Yep. So it's a further retreat, but it's a more active square for it.
Yeah,
And we're normally not going to be playing e6 here like we do in some other lines. We're we're going to be looking for e5 a little more often in this type of structure.
that's right. So the most common move for white now, continuing with their plan, is bishop to f4.
And it
After,
kind of walks right into the move we want to play, right? So e5.
yes, that's exactly right. And now after d takes e5, we have knight takes e5, castle, knight f6, and we're starting to develop all of our pieces very harmoniously, and we see that there's this weak diagonal that points to the white king. So even though we have an isolated queen pawn, we do have definite compensation for it because of the white king.
Yep, and our dark square bishop here is going to be a really strong piece, really highlighting the weakness of all these dark squares. And if any time we're getting uncomfortable because of this pin we're in right here, we still have this check in our back pocket and we can move the knight away. So the pin is just a temporary inconvenience that I don't think we need to worry too much about.
Yeah.
Um, so white continues moving forward, brings uh, the knight into d4. We break the pin here with bishop d6, again, kind of just pressuring all these dark squares and reinforcing the knight. Um, so almost, I see, I'm just reading the note here. Almost any move white plays here, we will castle. So we don't need to examine 10 different lines here. We'll look at knight b5, and here is one of those moves where we should not castle
Yeah, it's
because our queen's hanging.
the exception to that rule. So if, in
Mm.
this position, we can play queen to b6 check. This is not only checking the white king, but it's double attacking the knight. So the reason I'm highlighting this line is the most common move. The most common move for white here is to play knight b5, and if they don't play that, our plan is to castle. So knight b5, queen b6, the knight has to go right back. Now we castle. And here the ideas for us are queen takes b2, nice free pawn sitting there, knight takes d3, and also knight h5, making this bishop a bit uncomfortable because again, there's not a lot of squares for the dark square bishop.
Yep, for sure. That's a nice handy check to play because white did have this idea of forking our queen and our very nice dark square bishop, but we don't need to worry about it because of the check. So now we have kind of everything we were hoping for in the opening. We do have this isolated pawn here, but it should be pretty easy, I feel like, to push at some point and either trade it off or open up the position in our favor. So we have tons of scope for our pieces, and I think black is very happy here.
Yeah, and white's still down in development too. They have to get the b1 knight into play. So we definitely have a compensation for this isolated queen pawn.